who won from this recruiting cycle. Josh, it feels like the most obvious place to start. We look at these on-3 industry team recruiting rankings. The Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, top class. They had that locked up by last signing day. I mean, from Ryan Puglisi to Ellis Robinson. I mean, across the board, Georgia, the big dogs, eating
dogs
as
on
they
top.
always do, man. As
dogs
they always do.
on top. Yes, they do it. And even with one of the biggest flips in the cycle, Dylan Raiola, flipping from Georgia to Nebraska, they're still on top. They didn't even waver. I mean, Alabama at a distant second, even with the absence of Dylan Raiola on that commit list. Georgia does it, but they do it in the trenches. They do it on the defensive line. They do it on the offensive line. We talked to Jake Rowe earlier today, and Jake just made a great point of it's not necessarily, I mean, yes, they do get great players, but they develop them as well. Physically and mentally, they learn the game, but they also truly do develop their bodies. I mean, they get guys with the biggest frame, so Georgia's already starting at an advantage, but what they do with those guys when they get on campus is where the real magic happens.
It's freakish, and we talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show. Like, I think Kirby Smart, what makes him so great outside of acquiring the great talent, I mean, their system they have in place to create buy-in for guys to say, okay, if I come to Georgia, whether I'm a 5-star, I'm a 3-star, whatever, if I buy into the way that Kirby Smart does things and I, play scout team for 2 years, or heck, if in Carson Beck's, situation, you wait your turn for 3 years. When you eventually get your chance, 1, you'll be ready, and then 2, you'll have the success you want to have on the field to go and win a lot of games and probably be a high NFL draft pick.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you're referring to a particular recruit in that class.
There is one in particular that I am thinking about.
I think there's one.
Go for it?
I say we say it at the same time. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Ryan Puglisi.
See, we're locked in, man. We've been on the air for 2 hours going on. I guess this will be our third hour.
But the reason why I know is one, because we talked to him, but the point in which we did sit down with them at the end of May for the On3 NIL Elite Series, it was days after Dylan Raiola committed to Georgia, and quarterbacks, hey. There's only one quarterback on the field at a time. So a lot of quarterbacks like to be that QB1, especially if you're an elite recruit, which Ryan Puglisi was. And we thought we were going to get a different tone when we sat down, because the big news, everybody's celebrating this Dylan Raiola to Georgia commitment, and Puglisi had been committed for 4 or 5 months at that time, but he really impressed us.
Yeah.
And you can certainly see how a program like Georgia must get recruits like him on their team to kind of build that, not just camaraderie, but the buy-in, what you were talking about.
And Rusty Mansell talked about that a little bit. Maybe it was a round table, or maybe it was one of the shows over on the Dogs HQ channel, which get a membership there to keep you in the know for all things Georgia. But he likes to talk about the quarterback position as like, you have to have everybody in that huddle believe in you for you to be successful from an offensive play out. And Ryan Puglisi, like you said, just sitting down and talking with the guy, like intense, all about ball. He's going to, I think, translate really well. His belief in himself,
his belief in the Georgia program, I think all of those things, the ability to compete. I think he believed in Kirby Smart's fairness when it comes to competition. Like, I don't think he knew, just because Dylan Raiola at the time was the #1 quarterback in America, that he was going to get the same shot at Georgia as Dylan Raiola was.
Absolutely. Well, that's obviously the top school, or at the top of the On3 industry team recruiting rankings. Let's go back to that top 10 right here, Josh. Yeah. Pick a school, any school within this top 10. Who's one of your winners from this cycle?
Oh, I think all the teams on here are winners, and I'll go real quick. Alabama, obviously a winner because they lose Nick Saban but still stay at #2. Ohio State swipes Julian Sain from Alabama. Very opportunistic take right there. Oregon in the top 4 because they landed Gatlin Bear over Michigan. I mean, the last uncommitted, unsigned 5-star in the class, Gatlin Bear, wide receiver out of Idaho, commits to Oregon over the national champion Michigan Wolverines. Miami at 5, they do it by flipping one of Florida State's top commitments, Armando Blunt from Miami Central High School. They launched themselves into the top 5. Texas signs an unbelievable class up and down, but I love the D-line. Colin Simmons is a part of this one. Ryan Wingo, they have some true stars. Xavier Filsaime was a late flip from Florida, adding him to the secondary with Kobe Black. They have one of the top secondaries in the country. LSU, pull that back up. I'm not done here. LSU at number 7. I love what they did. They had a chance at flipping Terry Bussey, but they do flip Dominic McKinley from the Aggies. They really took advantage of the Aggies coaching change. They flipped, off the top of my head, Gabrielle Relaford, Weston Davis, Dominic McKinley had a shot at flipping Terry Bussey today, but he ends up signing with Texas A&M. Auburn then there at 8, Oklahoma at 9, and then Florida. To see Florida in there at number 10. When you and I sat here and did the show, they were number 16 after the early period and really had a rough day. They fell from 4 to 16 in a matter of days. And now they are back in the top 10 because of 2 short-term signees in Jameer Grimsley going from Bama to Florida, and also DeAndre Robinson. I said Texas had a great D-line class. They do. But they lost one. DeAndre Robinson, a 4-star, got out of his letter of intent after Texas lost their defensive line coach to LSU. And DeAndre Robinson chooses to stay in state with the Florida Gators. So I'm really impressed by all 10 of these programs.
All big. I mean, obviously all massive from an impact standpoint, from a point of view. Auburn at number 8 there. It said Miami, but I want to highlight number 8 Auburn in the sense that, like, in terms of what this meant for Hugh Freeze, this is kind of, in my mind at least, him making good on what you thought you were getting when Hugh Freeze became your head coach, because that was kind of the headline was, okay, great offensive mind, great recruiter, knows the SEC, and it's all well and good to talk about that in a press conference, and it reads real nice in a story when you hire the guy, but then to actually go out and do it in the SEC after you don't have the greatest season in the history of all seasons at Auburn. You know, they went 6-6, and so to take that momentum and say, hey, come be a part of what we're doing here at Auburn. You're going to catch the football if you're Cam Coleman. We'll put you in a position to succeed offensively. And to have a top 10 class right now, I think that was massive. And then what you said about Florida being at 10, Josh, we sat here on National Signing Day. It was bad vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes.
We were like, what's going on?
We're trying to keep it high, but like you couldn't ignore the elephant in the room, which was Florida was just having an awful day.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of like a stock. You know, you can have an awful day and still be on a good trajectory. And Florida just had an awful day, but they rebounded. Top 10 class for Billy Napier. Very important. Touch back on Auburn for a second. Yeah, it's a great class. You want a great class.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. You want to hire a coach like Hugh Freeze that can come in and build a great class. But we already know, JD, the SEC comes with expectations.
Yep.
And the only way to raise those expectations even higher is to bring in all these 5-star wide receivers and still not have a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to win, baby. Got to find a way.
So it's great that he got an influx of talent because you need it.
Yep.
But it's all got to come together because that window with the expectations, that window closes very quick. Like there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of excitement around that Hugh Freeze program after year 1. But you got to win on the field in the SEC. You're not going to get the same pass from fans and recruits if you're not winning in year 2, year 3 under Hugh Freeze. So it's imperative that they get out there and do it. But they did land several guys that will help this season on the football field.
I was going back through to see their 2023 class. They did land Hank Brown in 2023 from Lipscomb Academy here in Nashville. He's at Auburn, so that could be a guy going forward. And then also with Hugh Freeze, like you got to imagine with his pedigree and his background with quarterbacks, like the transfer portal you feel like will always be an option for Auburn. So we'll see if they do it at spring football.
We're in a much better place to find a quick fix because, hey, 5, 6, 10 years ago, if you're Hugh Freeze and you just brought this class in, you really are working with what you got.
Yep.
Like there is no transfer portal 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There is no idea of like, hey, we can lure this guy who's not doing, not starting. Everybody had to wait their turn back then. But now it can be a quick fix.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Auburn, I think, is in a really interesting spot here in the next couple of years with the portal, how they've attacked it previously. They had, at the last check, they had acquired 9 individuals through the transfer portal so far, but I'm curious if they're going to be in the mix there in that second spring window of the transfer portal.
They'll have to be.
Have to be, right? Have to be. You got to be on offense all the time. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.